Hi, and welcome to R&R Livin' Life. In this, the first episode of our trip south. We left home just after Alfred had made landfall and things had begun to calm down, especially in our neck of the woods. We began by banking our way south through Mulmerran and on to Goondiwindi before crossing the border into New South Wales. We had planned to make our way to North Star, but both roads, the one out of Boggabilla and the one off the Newell Highway, were closed, so we continued on through Moree and made camp for the first night at Gurley on the Newell Highway. We had camped at the showgrounds on a previous trip and knew that it was a great donation camp to stop at. We always look for ways to support small communities. As we made our way to the showgrounds, it was sad to see that the century-old Royal Hotel was no longer on the corner. Apparently, it had been burnt down in December 2024. Such a loss for a small community. After a very restful night, we continued south along the Newell Highway, making our way to Gulgandra via Narrabri, Weewar, Pilliga, Coonamble and Glargambone. We find it interesting to see the changes in the countryside since we had last travelled this stretch of the road. The Kapura Range before Narrabri always makes for a stunning backdrop with its ever-changing colours, regardless what time of day we see it. We continued on through Narrabri, where the open downs country looked very dry in places, and made our way along the Camilroy Highway to Weewar, said to be the oldest town on the Nemoy River. We stopped for a walk around the wide tree-lined main street and checked out what it had to offer, as last time we were here we kept driving as there was something on at the showgrounds. The area has a very productive agricultural sector based on cotton, grains and livestock, as well as timber, coal mining and coal seam gas industries. The levee bank on the outskirts of town was a point of interest, as I had not considered that Weewar, being on the banks of the Nemoy River floodplains, with several major waterways that feed into the river, was in need of a levee. How dumb of me! Construction on the Weewar levee bank, a 8.6 kilometre long earth embankment, was originally completed in 1978, following Weewar's extensive flood damage experienced in the 1971 flood. It varies in height between 2 and 4 metres and is typically 3 metres wide. I really was having a grey moment that day. From Weewar we made our way to Pilliga along the Weewar-Pilliga Road, a sealed regional road and part of the main east-west transport link, just a little under 60 kilometres, but we crossed major floodways and large sections of uneven road, though the council is in the process of upgrading a 20-kilometre section of the road. Pilliga, in the northwest plains section of the New England region of New South Wales, has its start from the early development of the timber industry. Gazetted as a township in 1885, Pilliga was once an important centre on the Cobb and Co route. The artesian bore bars in Pilliga were constructed in 1902 as a permanent town water supply after a severe drought. As we drove out of town we passed the Black Bowling Green, though a little worse for wear, and a huge infestation of invasive cactus. From Pilliga we continued on through forest country to Coonamble, a quiet rural service centre on the central Western Plains, situated on the Castlereagh Highway. On the way we saw paddocks of cultivated saltbush grown as a fodder plant to supplement sheep and cattle. From Coonamble we followed the alluvial plains of the Castlereagh River to Glargambone. We passed a mob of cattle that were feeding along the stock route. We had been seeing corrugated iron galahs along this stretch of the highway. The name Glargambone means little galah, so the town put galahs wherever they liked throughout the town, with a total of 40 galah sculptures, each about 2 metres square and raised 2 to 3 metres from the ground attached to metal poles. We did not find all 40 but did see a significant number of them. We stopped beside the Castlereagh for a walk in the park and to check out the river. We didn't do the river walk but did admire the John Oxley Memorial Rest Area and some of the spectacular street art and murals throughout the town. The bullock team and wagon as we entered Glargambone was very interesting. Glargambone Township was surveyed in 1866 and gazetted a village in 1883. In 1903, the railway was constructed to bypass the town, but due to the number of river crossings that would be required, a small siding, Galar Rail, was established nearby. Galarganbone was such a quaint and interesting little town that both Rick and I were glad we had stopped. As we made our way out of town, we were struck by the Kingfisher water tower art, so made a U-turn to check it out. Though in need of a little love, it was a stunning piece of artwork. After admiring the water tower, we continued on to Gilgandra, once again admiring the Kapura Ranges, this time from a different perspective across the alluvial plains of the Castlereagh. On arriving in Gilgandra, we stopped at the information centre, certainly well worth a visit, before we made camp beside the centre. Gilgandra is at the junction of the Castlereagh, Newell and Oxley highways and services a mixed farming district, notably for its grain cropping, sheep and cattle, with smaller rural industries involving pigs, poultry, aquaculture, ostriches, emus, deer, olives and buffaloes. Known for the Cooee March in 1915, when patriotic men from the community marched nearly 500 kilometres to Sydney during World War I to draw attention to the need for recruitment, starting with just 35 recruits, and by the time they reached Sydney there was more than 350 men. Gilgandra is known as the windmill town, where once there were 300 windmills in operation in the district by the 1950s, pumping sub-artesian water, a vital, reliable water supply for the town and the surrounding properties until 1966. It is worth noting that the Castlereagh River at this point is an upside-down river with the water flowing under the sand. Only when it is in flood does it become a conventional river. The Castlereagh begins in the Warrumbungle Ranges near Coonabarabran and flows northwest for about 550 kilometres to its confluence with the lower Macquarie River, with a catchment draining an area of 17,400 square kilometres, ranging in elevation from less than 200 metres on the floodplains in the northwest to 850 metres in the east, and is bordered by the Namoy catchment to the east and the Macquarie-Bogan catchment to the west. Water from the Castlereagh is mainly used for stock watering and dry land agriculture and horticulture. The following day we left Gilgandra and made our way towards Mudgee through a number of little towns. The first, Mandoran, the oldest town on the Castlereagh River, on the edge of the Goonoo National Park. Mandoran is a small village that grew in the 1860s on the original Mandoran station, near the bridge which passed over the Castlereagh River. In 1866 there were 24 residents recorded in the area. Many of the buildings are now empty as the town competes with the nearby larger centres of Gilgandra and Dubbo. The main appeal of the town, apart from the fact that it is the oldest town on the Castlereagh River, are the murals around town, started in an effort to attract visitors to the dying town. The murals depict the history of the area. The result is a reminder of the life led by early settlers, with images of bullocks, sheep, horses, and rural life. The first European to explore the area was John Evans in 1815. Then explorer John Oxley passed through the district in 1817. By the 1830s it was an important crossing point on the Castlereagh River. In 1850, Surveyor General Thomas Mitchell officially laid out the plan, with land being bought and sold by 1856. Then, in the late 1850s, John Cameron settled in the area. By the 1860s, the John Bull Inn was operating to serve the passing traffic. A bridge across the Castlereagh was completed in 1869, which increased the road traffic and contributed to the local development. Then, in 1874, the town was all but destroyed by a flood. We continued on along the Castlereagh Highway to Doondoo, another little town that we found worth visiting, that sits at the crossroads of the Golden and Castlereagh highways, surrounded by fertile plains, gentle rolling hills, and wide valleys adjacent the Talbarga River, with agriculture concentrated on wheat, cattle, mixed farming, timber, fat lambs, and wool. In 1823, explorer Alan Cunningham became the first European in the district, when he came across Pandora's Pass, the route over the Warrumbungle Range into the Liverpool Plains, with the district surveyed in 1832, and squatters soon following in search of fresh pastures. The town site was not surveyed until 1868, with a post office being established that same year. The two-storey Doondoo Hotel is an imposing building which serves as a reminder of a prosperous past. The town boomed when the railway originally came through in 1910, and the heritage-listed station building has been restored and painted. You really can't miss the silo art in Doondoo. The eastern side depicts local jockey Hugh Bowman with his winning gesture "She's Apples" with the mighty Winks and trainer Chris Waller. On the southern and western side, the silo depicts the Doondoo and district local rural landscape, including black swans flying overhead. The grain silos were opened in 1936 and were closed by GrainCorp in 2014, and is now privately owned by a local farmer, Mr. Brett Yeo. Running the full length of Doondoo's main street, OL Milling Lions Park features unique bird sculptures made from recycled farm machinery. Doondoo was another fascinating little town, certainly well worth visiting. After spending the morning in Doondoo, we continued on to Mudgee in the picturesque Cudgegon River Valley. We bypassed Goolgong this trip, as we had visited it on one of our trips around New South Wales in 2023. It had been an interesting place with an amazing museum. However, taking Gidget through town was a bit squeezy, as the streets were narrow, winding streets lined with heritage-listed buildings, but it certainly was well worth the stop, especially if you are in the area. Continuing on to Mudgee, we passed grape and olive farms, then open, often undulating grazing country. It really is a pretty part of country New South Wales. On arriving in Mudgee, we set up camp at the showgrounds. Not a bad place to camp, as it was on the edge of town. Mudgee is located in the broad, picturesque and fertile Cudgegon River Valley, surrounded by gently undulating hills. Famed for its gourmet experiences and picturesque countryside, said to be one of Australia's great food and wine destinations, being the third largest grape-growing region in New South Wales, with over 40 vineyards in the valley. But we were not there for the food and wine, as we were more interested in the picture postcard scenery and the rolling green countryside. The area is known for its fine wool, beef, fat lambs, cereal crops, lucerne, vegetables and honey. We took time to stroll along Mudgee's elegant tree-lined streets on part of the Heritage Walk with its 16 places of interest, and discovered some of the beautifully preserved colonial buildings, including the Mudgee Post Office, designed by architect Alexander Dawson in 1862, the first major country post office in New South Wales. Not far up the street was Robertson Park, with its beautiful gardens, a band rotunda built in 1903, and the War Memorial honouring the men who fought in the Boer War. Later that afternoon we made our way to Flirtation Hill Lookout, which offered us a panoramic view of the entire town. James Blackman was the first European in the Mudgee district who headed north to the Mudgee area from what is now Wallawang in 1821. He was the first European to cross the Cudgegon River, followed in November 1821 by William Lawson, a member of the first European party to cross the Blue Mountains in 1813 to reach the district. In 1822, the sons of William Cox, the man who built the road across the Blue Mountains, George and Henry Cox, established their property, Meena, 3 kilometres from where Mudgee stands today. In the early 1830s, William Lawson took up 6,000 acres along the Cudgegon River. A police station and lockup were established in 1833, followed by a slab building built by Blackman in 1837. In 1838, Robert Hoddle surveyed the town, with the village of Mudgee officially gazetted in 1838. While in Mudgee, we visited the Drip Gorge walking track that meanders along the Goulburn River to the Great Dripping Wall, where rainwater trickles through the sandstone walls. Abundant plant life along the track added to the beauty of the walk. Along the walk were lots of different habitats, from small river flats, shallow water rock holes, boulder piles and cliff faces. The Drip is part of the Goulburn River National Park, an important 74,000 hectare conservation reserve that is centred around the 90-kilometre long River Gorge and surrounding plateaus. The rocky landscape reveals spectacular weathered sandstone terrain, undulating ridgetops and abrupt gorges edged with ochre-coloured cliffs, caves, platforms, pinnacles and pagodas. In places, 15-million-year-old basalt lava flows added to the geology and rich soils, straddling the wet coastal districts to the drier inland through dry woodlands of inland scribbly gum and cypress pine plateaus. It was such a peaceful and relaxing spot. Even the walk was not difficult, as it meandered along the edge of the water. When we stopped to listen, the bird life was amazing, and as usual the wrens were out playing until we got too close. It was a difficult place to leave, but onwards we would go, as we headed back past the coal mine and then to Woollahra. The Moolarben coal mine Yancool is about 40 kilometres from Mudgee, comprising both open cut and underground mining areas, covering an area of approximately 80 square kilometres, adjacent to the Goulburn River and the Drip Gorge. At full development, Moolarben will comprise 4 open-cut mines, 3 long-wall underground mines, and mining-related infrastructure, including coal processing and transport facilities. Having just visited the Drip and the Goulburn River, I wonder just what impact underground mining is having on the conditions of the water supply and the surrounding fragile sandstone cliffs and gorges of the area. I have often wondered how carving up the earth for natural resources is beneficial to the environment. It seems that human needs are more important than the environment we live in, yet if we don't keep the environment healthy, then we suffer because of it. We had seen some long haul trains in Western Australia, though the one we passed today wasn't quite as long. The land clearing for the expansion of the mine was quite something, and the amount of water used to limit the dust was huge. On one side of the road was natural stunning ranges, while on the other was carved up land. I wonder how many people stopped to think about the destruction of the environment as they passed. Progress, they call it. I will leave you for this episode as we reach the little town of Woollahra. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this episode. Join us next time as we visit Spring Gully in the Goulburn National Park, continue exploring the Mudgee area, and then make our way towards Blackheath. Stay safe and enjoy life. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.